Good evening. Welcome to I'mPossible Conversation. I'm your host, Suki, and welcome, Michael. Mick,
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for being in I'mPossible Conversation. This is our very first in 2021.
Good. Pleased to be on. I'm pleased to that I was able to come on. Yes.
Yeah, I think your microphone's a little bit further, so I can't hear very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is better now.
Yeah, right. That's okay. As long as it's better.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, so you got your hat on.
I've got my hat on. Yes.
Mhm.
My hat. Everybody in Blythe knows me because of the hat. When I don't wear it, they keep saying, "Where's your hat?"
Yeah.
So
So
it's become part of me.
why
Like,
are you into hats?
it started a few years ago when I bought one because it was cool, and like a lot of people becoming follically challenged. So I bought a hat when I was out. I don't like woolly hats, so I bought one of these, and I quite like it. I think there's quite sort of a bit of flair to it. And then we got the
Mhm.
swan's feather and stuck the swan's feather in, and so yeah, I've got two or three of these now. So yeah, just keep moving them around. But whilst we're in and whilst we're on, I shall take the hat off. There we
Mm,
go.
excellent. So, l- please introduce yourself because from market boy to Red Cross Community Connector,
That's me. Yes.
what's the
Good
story
evening,
in
everyone.
between?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Rickwood. I'm 66, and this story has been 52 years in the making. Uh, Started off at the age of 14 as a in the Granger market as a butcher's boy. Hated it, absolutely hated it. But needs must. You needed some pocket money at the time, so you stuck it for a little while, and then slowly but surely moved out into other parts of retail and ended up working for a tailor's shop in Newcastle, which is where I got my love of clothing from. You know, at the time, looking back, one of the quotes that always sticks in my mind is from Confucius: "If you find a job that you love doing, you'll never have to work a day in your life." And I can honestly say that for the majority of my working life, I've never had to work a day of it. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. As I say, I went to work various different retails. I learned how to bone meat in the butcher's shop, how to
Mm-hmm.
trade bacon at another retailers in the town, and then went to work for a tailor shop. And one of the gentlemen there, an older gentleman, used to say to me, "Watch and learn. This is all about recognizing your customer and your customer's needs." And the first time that I was standing beside him, there was a lady came into the shop first, followed by her husband. And he said, "Would you like to have a seat, madam? Have a seat. Michael, go and make the lady a cup of tea." Went and made her a cup of tea, came back, and he's got the gentleman looking at suits, but he's bringing each suit back to the his wife and saying, "Do you think sir would like this? No. Do you think sir would like that?" And
Mm.
eventually, when he says, "So what did you learn?" I says, I don't know. He says, "He didn't want a suit. She wanted him to have a suit. Therefore, I had to sell the suit to her, not him." And then the next time that somebody came in, maybe it's not next time, but a few customers later, there was a gentleman coming through the door, followed by his wife. Sat her down, go and get her a cup of tea, Michael. I did that, and he took the gentleman away and sold the suit to the gentleman. Never showed anything to the wife. And he says, "What have you learned?" I says, "He wanted the suit. She didn't. She wasn't bothered." He says, "That's correct. Watch and learn. Learn about your customer. Recognize the customer and how they come in, and then you can deal with it accordingly." And that was one of my very first lessons in people management, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And by that time I was in my about 17, 18. And then at the age of 19, I had this, I suppose, epiphany that I didn't want to go to university. I got my A levels. Didn't want to go to university, but I was going to join the police. So that's what we did. Well, I did. My mother hit the roof. I think she pelted everything, threw everything at the house at me, bar the kitchen sink, because she
Mm-hmm.
kept me at school, got my A levels with a view of me going to university, and I didn't want to. So I joined the police. And that started 2 years of pain.
Was it hard
Uh,
to join to police force?
Not then. It was very easy. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you had the exams to take, the medical was all right, and then you went away for 10 weeks training.
Mm.
You come back after 10 weeks, and the terrifying realization is you're out there on the street in your uniform, and the people, the members of the public, expect you to deal with whatever they throw at you and to know exactly what is supposed to be done. And that's a very hard realization,
Mm-hmm.
quite frightening. And it took a while to get over. But I used to work in Scots within Newcastle as a young uniform beat officer, and you deal with all manner of things: domestic disputes, thefts of vehicles, assaults, drunks, you name it. It is dealt with, and it's dealt with there and then. And quite often you're on your own. So going on about 3 years service, I was told I was going down to Newcastle city centre, which would be about 1976. Now, city centre in 1976 was quite a hairy place of a night time. It was quite boisterous, more boisterous than what it is today, and it frightened me. There was a fear when I went down into that big market on a
How
Friday
old were
night
you?
that I would be that time 22, 23.
All right.
And, but again, you suddenly look around you and you see what's going on. But the realization is you're not alone. Whereas in Scotswood, I was by myself. I'm now dealing with exactly the same situations, but there's maybe 10, 15 police officers there. So you're not alone. So you suddenly think, whoa, hold on a minute. I did that out there on my own. So here, it's easier.
Also in Scotswood Road, there
You're on
was
your
a
own. Yeah.
uh-huh. Mm-hmm. That
Yeah,
was
it's
your
no
area you
problem.
looked
Yeah.
after.
Yeah. And, you look at it and you think it's easier. So
Mm-hmm.
there's where the realizations start to kick in. Um, about 1977, I was involved on a murder, and CID at the time, they used to look upon uniform officers as the lowest of the low. You didn't have any sort of rank, or you weren't looked upon as being proficient. And I remember being talked down to for the full 3 weeks I was on the murder by a certain detective sergeant. And after 3 weeks going into this house and looking at this young man and talking to him and asking him the questions, and the realization suddenly hits you: this is the murderer. This guy here has done the murder,
Mm-hmm.
but not having the confidence, because this sergeant had said that you were incompetent, you're just a uniform officer. Not having the
Mm-hmm.
confidence to do anything about it there and then, but going back to the station and saying, I know who the murderer is. And this detective sergeant laughing at me in my face and saying, you're just a thick wooden top. How do you know? We've got detectives working on this and they haven't found him. So why do you think you found him? Explained it. Nothing. But fortunately, the superintendent in charge came out and listened to me and said, go back with him, go back with the officer and sort it. Now, going back up in the car, the realization hits me. I've done all this work. I know who this man is.
Mm-hmm.
And we start again. This sergeant saying to me, you're just a uniform officer. I will make the arrest. You just stand behind me. You listen to what I've got to say. Do you understand? And I got out the car, ran to the door, knocked on the door, and said, "You're under arrest for murder. You do not have to say anything." And arrested the guy there. And then the sergeant said, "I told you I was going to do that." I said, "I might be a bit slow at the
Mm-hmm.
moment, but I pick up on what's to be done and I learn very quickly." So yeah, so it's all about overcoming self confidence,
Mm-hmm.
learning. Eventually I ended up in CID, and I had to reinvent myself from the uniform officer that stood out there and did whatever was told to actually being somebody who had to take a very proactive role in crime
Mm-hmm.
investigation. Instead of just going and taking the notes and handing it in, actually taking a proactive role and making any investigations and going out and actually not just attending a crime but investigating it. And but again, working with older police officers, older detectives who had the experience, who I looked up to. I was just a young, I was, by this time I'm 25, 26. I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking up to these guys in their 40s who have done this for years and thinking, how can I be like you? And I found it difficult for a long time to interview anybody, any prisoner, even ones I brought in their
Mm-hmm.
presence, in case I got it wrong, in case they thought I got it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Until one night, there was 28 arrests brought in on this Sunday night for crime. Now, night shift, there's only one detective on a night shift. And I'm looking at, I've got 28 people in the cells, all needing to be interviewed. And by 6 o'clock in the morning, I had 20 people interviewed. I had 28 confessions. I had them all charged, bailed, and all the basic paperwork done so I could go home. And again, the realization hits, what have I been afraid of? Why was I so concerned? Because I I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, we go on, we move on. And that's, as far as the police service was concerned, it's it was like that right the way through. Learned how to do things, you know, stand up in Crown Court and give evidence. I remember when we were doing check credit card fraud investigation, having 5 defendants up for a number of checkbook frauds, and I was actually in the witness box for 3.5 days, and I had to stand there, and there was 5 different barristers,
Mm-hmm.
all asked me similar questions in different ways about the evidence I'd given, hoping that I would drop the ball and give them an in.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, but again, you begin to realize that, yeah, if I take my time and I think and I do things in a logical order, I can do this.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah. Which, I suppose goes a long way to to building the person who I am today. But it's interesting because even then, I didn't realize that one of my biggest skills was the ability to communicate.
Mm.
I could. Sorry, you're going to
Yeah.
say something.
The communication skills. What would you say for people based on your experience? What's the best way to make increase it faster, become better communicator?
Practice,
Mm-hmm.
believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if you're going to start talking about anything, talk about something that you know about. Make it personal to you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then you don't have to really remember much. You've just got to know the facts and fill it in. You know, I remember when I first started the police, I had a sergeant, and my very first day when I was there, it was a 6 o'clock start, and he said to me, "I've got a very important job for you." And I thought, wow. He says, "Go out and get a cup of tea." And I looked at him. He says, "That's what you've got to do. When you come in here at 9 o'clock, I need to know that you've had a cup of tea." And I went out and I found somewhere and I had a cup of tea. And when I went back, we had our refreshment break. And he said, "Come on, you're coming up with me." And I says, "Where we're going?" He says, "You're going to take me for that cup of tea. You're going to show me where you went."
Yeah.
And the next day was exactly the same. Get 2 cups of tea, get 3 cups of tea, get 4 cups of tea. And you think, what the devil is he doing? But what he realized at the time was he had a 19-year-old youth boy
Mm.
who thought he was a man, in a uniform, who basically needed to learn the ability to talk to people on the street. And I had to learn it fast. Well, what better way than to make me go out there and find somebody to talk to and get a cup of tea? And it stood me in good stead, that lesson, because if you ever want to, if you think about it, if you go to anybody's house and there's anything happening, would you like a cup of tea? It breaks the ice. It always breaks the ice. And I've used it on interviews. I've used it when you've done death messages and death calls and things like that. And it allows people the chance to open up. And by the time I was finished that week, I had 8, 9 places on the area where I could get a cup of tea. But more than that, I'd put my stamp on the area, and people are getting to know me. And I would go there on a regular basis, and it would become a meeting point. And people might come in and say, "Do you know Johnny at such and such an address?" "Yes. He was out last night. He came in with 2 televisions." you know, it become that place where it was neutral ground. And I mean, even down to when I used to hear a policeman going to pubs for a drink and lock-ins and all the rest of it, which is poo-pooed upon now. The fact that you were in a pub when you shouldn't have been with other people meant that you were all in it together. And whereas if they saw you in the street, they would probably walk straight past you. When they were in there at that time, they would talk to you. They would actually
Yeah.
pass you information because you were part of the clique. You were part of their little gang at that time, although it'd been right only be for half an hour. And it's marvelous the way it used to work, but that's the way it goes. Yeah.
So how long have you been in a police force?
I was in 26 now, 27 years. Um, in 1999, I had a nasty fall. I fell down all the stairs at the quayside in Newcastle, and I put discs out on my neck and my back, and I lost the feeling in my hands and feet. And eventually I got pensioned off. So at that time, I mean, I only had 2 small kids. My kids were only, David would be then 10 and Laura would have been 12. And you look at it and you think, I've got to be able to go back out to work. I can't support you on my pension. So you then start to think, well, what can I do? What is it out there that I can do? What am I? I'm a policeman. What skills have I got? I haven't got any skills. Nothing that I can bring into Civvy Street. And it wasn't until about 6 months that I suddenly realised that.
I think your microphone's gone away as well.
Gone away,
Yeah.
is that better?
Yeah.
About 6 months, I was on the sick after I'd retired, and the realization hit me that I could talk. So I had to find a position somewhere that involved talking to people, which I did. And I set up a company called Access to All,
Mm-hmm.
and that was looking at disability access to premises like you have now, lifts,
Mm.
ramps, and that sort of thing.
Right.
But it was just starting off, just getting
Mm-hmm.
started off when I got involved in it. And uh, again, it was knowing the product, knowing the client, and knowing how best to sell it and sell yourself. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the biggest problem I had was I was a one-man band.
Mm-hmm.
I was on my own, and I had to compete with larger companies and larger organizations. And I was fortunate in that one of my old superintendents was head of security for Newcastle United,
Mm-hmm.
and I went knocking on his door. And although he'd had an access order done, he was looking for somebody to interpret it for him,
Mm-hmm.
so which he gave to me. And then we sold 3 or 4 bits of equipment into the ground. Now, at that time, I was chasing a large family bakery up here to get their work. And after a while, I got a phone call saying, "Why should we go with you? You're a one-man band, and you've then got to stand up and be recognised." And my reply to that was, "Because I'm the best. I'm local.
Mm-hmm.
You'll not get a better price. You'll not get a better service, no matter where you look. You're
Mm.
looking here at the best."
Yeah.
And he said, "Prove it, put it in writing." So I did. Now, to say that, a little bit goes a long way. And fortunately, I had photographs of the equipment going into St. James's Park. So I put it on and I just said, "And here's the photographs of the type of equipment that we are now fitting in St. James's Park."
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you think on the Thursday, he rang me and said, "Mr. Rickwood." I said, did the letter on the Friday. He got it on the Monday. On the Tuesday, he rang me and said, "Hi, Mick, how are we going to progress with this?"
Oh.
And that's all because I could show 2 bits of equipment being fitted in St. James's Park. He didn't know how much equipment I'd fitted. He didn't know how
Mm-hmm.
much money I'd made. But it took another 6 months of hard graft and presentations and standing up in front of the CEO to
Mm-hmm.
convince them that they should, in actual fact, could go with us. And I mean, we did that a few times, and we got a large hotel group, 3 or 4 football clubs. I've done access audits for piers,
Mm-hmm.
zoos, you name it. The CIU movement used me and they still contact me today when they
Mm-hmm.
have a problem under the Act. Um, and somebody said, "Well, why do people keep contacting you for advice?" This is because I'm honest, I'm open, I don't try to oversell them anything. I
Mm-hmm.
sell them what they need, and I'm not frightened to turn around and say, "You're wrong. You're wrong about that." And they listen. So again, it's all about basic communication. It's about how do you move on from there. And after I've been working with that for about 6 years, I got a phone call from somebody who I didn't know, hadn't met them before, and they had been given my name and were looking for a manager. And I said I wasn't interested. It was working for a gas and electric company. And I said I wasn't interested. It wasn't my thing. And after about 4 days of phone calls, I decided that I would meet him. So I did. And we had coffee in the morning, a chat. He says, "I'll
Mm-hmm.
buy you lunch." So I bought him lunch and we had another chat. And he says, will you just help me out? He says, I bought you lunch, will you help me out? I says, yeah. He says, can you just do this role play with one of my trainees?
Mm-hmm.
I says, yeah, not a problem. So we did the role play. And then we sat down. He says, right, I want to offer you the job. I says, how can you offer me the job? I says, you've never interviewed me. He says, what do you think we've been doing all day?
Mm.
And again, you get this realization that there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to interview somebody for a job. And you probably got more out of me doing it that way than the regular questions. But I
Mm-hmm.
went to work for them and I had 3.5 years of hell. I hated it. My guts told me not to do it, but I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the only 3 years of my life where I had to go to work. And after 3 years, I says, that's it. And I says, I can't do it anymore. And just
Mm-hmm.
left and started to work for myself again. And it was about that time that we started and headed up with Year One Speakers
Oh, the
with
public speaking club. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Les and Peter, Steve, Tom,
Mm-hmm.
we Simon, we all set it up, we got it going, and it was interesting. And it's again, it's the realization that hey, I've got a voice, and not only that, it's a voice that somebody wants to listen to. So you progress and you get involved with it, Suki, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is very interesting place to be.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, you can learn so much,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned so much about management with the management roles, speech, how to put a speech together, how to put a presentation together, to
Mm-hmm.
build the confidence to be able to stand there and talk and present is something that's invaluable, and it's the cheapest way to do it, as you know. It's so easy to do.
You get feedback. That
Yes.
progress even faster because who
Yep.
gets the chance to speak in front of 15, 20 people every 2, 3
Mm.
weeks?
Yes. And everybody laughs. You have a good laugh with what we now call hot questions, but
Mhm,
they're not there to intimidate you. They're there to stretch you, to make you use your imagination, to make you think on the spot. I always remember somebody saying to me, I was doing a presentation for, I wasn't doing a presentation. I had done everything I possibly could to get into this company. And I had a solicitor helping me, and he was doing the presentation. And the CEO of the company turned around and said to me, if he's here doing this, what am I paying you for? I says, he's here doing this because he's telling you the law. I'm the guy who's going to do the work. I'm the guy that's going to put the prices together. I'm the guy that's going to save you money. He's just going to tell you what the law is, but I'm the one that's going to implement it on your behalf. The realization that I had the ability to do that with confidence,
mhm,
that's all part of this journey. It's all part of the journey I've been on. And each step of the way, the realization that you've done something, it's been a success or a failure, you've learned from that success or that failure. It's wonderful. I mean, there's times people have said to me, in that speech, you had some wonderful pauses. And I'm thinking, yep, because I forgot what I was going to say. And I needed the time to think. But the fact that you end up with the confidence to be able to stand there quietly and smile whilst you get your mind back in order and pull out from those depths what you need to say is it's all about the learning curve, isn't it? And
It is, absolutely.
whereas as a policeman I could stand up in the witness box, as I said, 3 days at one time, not a problem. It's again the realization that once I was a police officer, I had the protection of a badge. when I was in the witness box, I had the protection of the box, and I was in my little safe zone.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact I knew the evidence, again, is a safe zone
Mm-hmm.
and gives you the confidence. But once you strip all that away, you've again got to reinvent it. You've got to draw on something else to become I suppose your crutch really. This facade that you put on is this is
Yeah.
who I am. This is who I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Become a different person. So yeah.
Yeah, because I really want and would like to be I'mPossible conversation is all about the person, not this title, this job, so this success. And
No,
it's just such a lovely to when you mentioned that. And what's your biggest lesson so far?
I think the biggest lesson is you have nothing to fear but fear itself, and that's a quote from Roosevelt, and it's a fact. Fear can drive you into a hole. It can stop you from, prevent you from doing things. And provided you, on whatever venture you're going to set out on, provided you have got the correct tools, you've got the right information, and you have everything in place, there's only one person going to there's only one thing let you down, and that's yourself.
Mm,
And to have everything, all your ducks in a row and everything sorted, you've then got to just build up your confidence to be able to go out and do it. You know, some of the things that I've done since I left the police, uh, there's been many. I've only mentioned a couple, but I set up a company on the back of A1 speakers called Speech Genius, and
mm,
I was going into schools and talking to pupils about um, their skills and what skills they had that might be transferable. And I remember talking to one young man, and I mean, he sat at the back of the class and he had this long curtain hairstyle. He had his hair down, so you could hardly see his face. And I asked him the question, so what skills have you got? And he said, none. I don't have any skills. I said, so, well, what do you do? I'm a gamer. He says, right. He says, so when I go home for night time, I go on my computer and I play war games. Says, okay.
mhm,
For how long? 4, 5, 6 hours a night. He says 10, 12 hours every day, Saturdays and Sundays, weekends. Never go out. I'm in my room. That's all I do. I said, okay. But let's look at your skills. He says, I haven't got any. He says, how about concentration? He says, what? He says, concentration is a skill. To be able to concentrate with that amount of effort on a screen for that length of time is a skill. He says, I couldn't do it. That's a
mhm,
skill. I says, what about, so I says, you're using the joysticks and you're using your pads, yes. I says, what about manual dexterity? I says, your fingers, your hands, and your thumbs are all moving at speed to get everything going where you want it to go. I says, I can't do it. I says, so you set out on a journey on this game, and I said, you've got to get from A to B without being killed. He says, yeah. I said, what about logistics? How do you get from A to B? How do you plan that out? And we went through about 4 or 5 different ideas. And I says, there's companies out there, I says, who will pay you good money with those skills to destroy new games. And that's what you need to think of. There you go. There's a thought. And everybody's like looking at this guy who's a total loner who they've written off, and all of a sudden the same as somebody that he's somebody to be reckoned at. This guy could go places. And it's getting people to, that's what we did at the schools, to talk to people about their skills, their attitudes, and get them to begin to appreciate that natural fact they were someone.
mhm,
They they had something to give, and no matter how small it was valuable and it was worthwhile, and it needed to be nurtured. And provided they were willing to uh, look at it and develop it, it could something they could take into the workplace. I mean, a young girl said to me when I asked her what she was hoping to achieve, she said, "I have never achieved. I will never achieve. I don't want to achieve." I says, "Did you get up this morning?" She says, "Yes." "Did you have your breakfast?" "Yes." "Did you put your clothes on?" "Yes." "Did you get to school?" "Yes." Says, "There's 4 achievements. Well done." And she says, "Everything you do is an achievement, no matter how small. You've just got
Mm-hmm.
to recognize that." And it's looking at things from outside the box. How do you do things? And it's interesting. But I enjoyed year one speakers. It was beginning to have an impact on year one speaker speech genius. I wasn't enjoying it as much, and it was my hobby. So
Mm-hmm.
we moved on. We moved on, and I went to work for I went to work for the probation service. Just for it's only 17 weeks because what they were
Uh-huh.
going to do, what they wanted to do, I knew, and a couple of others knew, just wouldn't take off, and it didn't. So we were only there 17 weeks. But the interesting thing was there we were talking about capital and corporal punishment, and there was only one sticker on the board that said capital punishment should be brought back, and she put it at my door. And I says, "Right, they put it at my door." So she says, "Well, who else would do it?" I said, "Well, okay." At the end of the training, after 6 weeks, it was a 6 weeks training course. At the end of 6 weeks, they did exactly the same again, and there was 21 of us on the course, and 19 stickers for capital punishment were back up. And she says, "This isn't supposed to happen." I says, "Obviously, I can talk to people better than what you can and convince people of the right things." And so that was it. So it was interesting. That's my conversations. I convinced people that they should bring it back, and her conversations about various different other forms of punishment didn't go down too well. But yeah, so yeah, and then I went to work for a market research company, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I enjoy walking around the streets, knocking on doors, with a computer, doing 45-minute interviews on the doorstep?
Would
And
people allow you to do that?
yeah, yeah,
It,
45 minutes. Some people would stand there, and I would just fill in the details on and ask them the questions and put their answers into the computer. And
mm-hmm.
why did I enjoy it? I was talking to people. I was interacting with people. I
Uh-huh.
was getting them to tell me things that they wanted to know. And sometimes it was difficult. Sometimes you had to know. You could see when somebody come to the door whether or not it was going to be an easy interview or a hard interview. And yeah, it was all right. So yeah, yeah. And just as that came to an end, somebody said to me, uh, sent me a link and said, "Here, have a look at this. It's right up your street." And that was the British Red Cross Community Connect.
Uh-huh. Tell us
And
more. It's all about this kindness, connecting people and helping
yeah,
others.
yeah, yeah. And, you know, I was sent up to Blythe and Northumberland, and everybody says, "Oh, you've gone to a bad place there." And I says, "No, I haven't. It's a wonderful place, Blythe." That's where I worked on the murder. I says, "The people are absolutely fantastic," and they were. But I spent first 8 weeks knocking doors,
Mm-hmm.
introducing myself to people. This is where the hat comes in.
Mm-hmm.
This is who I am,
Yeah.
and they. I found that people were interested and wanted me to be involved. So social services, adult social services were interested, Age UK, various different other organisations, rehabilitation centres, and again, it was interesting to see how they accepted another organisation coming in to their area, wanting to, I suppose, muscle in on what they were doing as well. But we formed an awful lot of alliances and worked together on a lot of things. And I remember the mayor for Blythe rang me up after about 8 weeks, and Kat was a wonderful woman, and I mean she rang me up. She said, "Is that the Red Cross?" I said, "Yes." And this who am I speaking to? She says, "It's the mayor. I'm the deputy mayor of Blythe. You're in my area. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're doing. I'll see you in 10 minutes at the library upstairs, back room. Okay, bye," and hung up. So I went to the library upstairs, back room, walked in, and she said, "Sit down. Who are you?" So, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm here. We're connecting with the community. We're helping people become involved in X, Y, and Z. And hopefully we'll be able to help people who are lonely and isolated, blah, 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 blah." And she says, "Good. Have you spoken to such and such?" I says, "No." She says, "Get your book out." And she gave me a list of names and telephone numbers. And she says, "Have you got an office?" I says, "No." She says, "Tom," this brings this guy up. Uh, "I've got a guy here from the Red Cross. I'm sending him home now. You've got a spare office. Give it to him. Okay, bye." And it was like, who is this person? Uh, but yeah, and it just took off. It literally took off. I mean, there's a lovely, wonderful cafe in Blythe called Freedomworks. If ever you get through this pandemic, when we get there, it's well worth a visit. It's even better at about 12 o'clock in the afternoon. There's a gentleman sits in the corner and plays the grand piano. It's wonderful. It's really, the food's nice as well. But I used to go in there Sundays if I was meeting a lot of people, and I'd get a table in the corner, and they would just bring me teas and coffees. Never asked me to go.
Mm-hmm.
Never said, that we need the table. And it's all about connecting with people
Mm-hmm.
and how you do it. And I think one of the very first young people who I dealt with was a young lad who he tried to commit suicide 3 times. He was angry at himself, at the world. He'd been bullied, and I went to speak to him, and I was there for 2 hours, and he never spoke. He never spoke to me at all. The second time I went, I was there for about the same amount of time. He never spoke to me at all, and I got up to leave, and I said, "Okay," I said, "it's simple as this. I'm coming back next week." I said, "But before I do, I'm going to send Harry Potter's owl with a letter, and you're going to write in that letter what you want to do or what you want to talk about, and you're going to send it back." And I suppose in many ways it was a flippant remark because I was up to here trying to talk, trying to convince him. And he said, "Owls? You know somebody with owls?" And I says, "Yes, I do. Can we go and see them?" I says, "Yes, we can." I says, "But you're going to talk to me first. Why owls?" He says, "I just like owls." We says, "Take me to see them." So next week we took him to see him. And I took him 2 weeks running, and on the third week I says, "Look," I says, "I can take you next week, but you're going to have to get the bus back to Blythe." Now,
Mm-hmm.
where I took him was a place in Wallsend, and he literally, when he walked in, and I mean, the first owl he ever touched was it's a Eurasian eagle owl, which stands about 15 inches tall. I mean, literally, it's really high. Big Jessica, she's called, and they put him on his arm, and he started to stroke, and Jessica just leant in and put her head closer to his, and he's just sat there, and the calmness that came down, and it was like I stood there, I couldn't believe it, and he was like, "Wow." So as I said, I told him I couldn't take him home. He says, "Oh," he says, "I get the bus at the bottom of the street." He says, "To such and such." He says, I get off there and I get another bus up to home. It's not a problem. He says, it'll take me 40 minutes to get home. He says, in fact, don't come for us next week. He said, I'll come on my own. From being that, an
Uh-huh.
angry young man who smashed up his room, who wouldn't speak to people, who tried to commit suicide, to he started to go there 3, 4 times a week on his own.
Mhm.
He's now doing interviews on Tainty's television, Radio Newcastle, The Chronicle, The Guardian, Live News, and he's totally different because we managed to find something that he could
Mhm.
connect with.
Yeah.
And with a lot of people that we work with, and a lot of people that we help,
Mhm.
it's a case of that initial conversation, trying to find the one thing that will light them up, that will give them that light bulb moment. And I mean, Derek at the Faulkner Centre, I've now had 10 different individuals with Derek, and I've seen exactly the same response on every occasion. And we've got 10 people now who Derek's worked with who have literally changed their lives. And you think, what is it about these wonderful, wise old owls that brings peace into a troubled mind? And it's been a really interesting journey for me, that, because I can't answer the question. All I can say is that I've witnessed it on so many different occasions. But
Wow.
we we deal with so many people who've got complex anxieties and
Mhm.
depression, that it can be very, very difficult, and we just need to take time out and not to be afraid to try something new. You know, silly things that people laughed at. People laughed at me when I said I was taking people to see owls until they saw the results. I had two gentlemen who, one liked modelling and one liked model railways.
Mhm.
So I put the two of them together for a coffee, and I said, why don't you sit down and why don't you think about making a model of Blythe railway station from the 50s? Wonderful idea. That has grown. I mean, it's shelved at the moment, but that's grown to 10 men now who get together once a week
Mhm.
to supposedly build this model railway station. It hasn't progressed much in about 6 months, but it's
Yeah.
there. But it's interesting to see them together and pull together and their different ideas and their knowledge, And some of these people who work within the area remember it. It's their memories. You know, I've got I had 96-year-old guy, and I went and see him, and I said, Sydney, what do you want out of this? You've got to tell me what you're expecting out of this. He says, I just want you to find me a woman. Just find me a woman. I said, Sydney, I'm 86. He says, I know, but he says, just to sit across the table, see a pretty face, and have a cup of tea.
Uh-huh.
It's wonderful. He says, I'm sick to death of looking at your face. So it's just different things, and eventually, after about 6 months, we managed to find a lady that would have a cup of tea with them. And it's gone. And they used to meet once a week and have a cup of tea. And they were both, he was happy. He thought it was wonderful. But it got them out the house and give them a purpose to get up in the morning and get yourself ready and something to look forward to. And that's sometimes all it takes. It doesn't have to be anything big or flash or, you know. And as I said to you earlier, with COVID since last March, all we've been able to do is support people over the telephone.
Mm. Yeah.
I say all, but
Mhm.
we've now got we make about 76 phone calls twice a week to various different people, and sometimes it's a minute. Some of the old ladies all they want is the fact that somebody's rang them. Hello, pet, you all right? Yes, yes. What do you want to talk about? You've got more important people to talk to than me. So other people need you more than what I do. But it's nice to hear your voice. I'll speak to you next week and hang up. But the fact that somebody is taking the time just to say hello is
Yeah,
all that it needs, you know. Others are
absolutely.
more complex, you
Yeah.
know.
Mm.
I
So
mean,
yeah, yeah. That's there's someone's thinking of you and like caring about you. That's the most important thing. When I asked you what's your favorite quote, you said it's never too late to be what you might have been by George Elliott.
yes, well, that's it. I'm evolving. Over 52 years of work, I've evolved. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know where I might have been. I wanted to be a policeman. I was a policeman. I moved on from there and I became something else. I'm now a Red Cross community connector. And I look at that quote, and yes, and that's what I try to get through to some of the younger people we support. You know, yes, you may have left school. Yes, you might not have much in the way of an education, but there are things out there you can do. There's things out there you can get involved with. And it's never too late to start again. When I look at my life and what I've done and where I've been and the different things I've tried, not everything's been a success. It hasn't, you know. But you learn by your mistakes and you move on. But it's never too late. I'm 66, and it's never too late. It's still not too late.
And
I
you're
mean,
setting up your new business or
well,
like
it's not.
is
It's
I mean the website at hobby.
well, I enjoy photography. I
Uh-huh.
do. I enjoy photography. I've spent a lot of money just recently on cameras and lenses and that sort of stuff. Um, and I took a photograph a while ago in May, and I got it enlarged and I got it framed. And the company Frameworks at Blythe, who did it for me, they asked if I could get another one printed off so that they could sell it in a shop. And you get this eureka moment saying, oh, hold on a minute. And here we've got a shop wanting to buy one of them. Maybe they'll buy others. And yes, we've talked about the other shops, photographs that I've taken. And then you think, well, you might never ever sell anything, but
Yeah.
somebody might just get a bit of pleasure of flicking through your photographs that you've put together in various different series and various different folders. So yeah, that's MR photography is the next step. It's the next next movement because the Red Cross job won't last forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as long as it does, I'll be here and I'll be making the phone calls, helping people as best as I can. But what we do, um, the photographs. I mean, I put a quiz together every week. Quiz, funny section, word search, and it started off. It went to 10 people, and there's now over 1,000 people a week get it because
Online.
yeah,
Oh
because
wow.
it gets. I send it out. It goes out to the NHS, various different hubs. It goes out to other community connectors throughout the country.
Mm-hmm.
Each concern. Um, you name it. There's that many different organisations. Annick Castle get a copy of it. It's so yeah. It goes all over the place. And what they do is they've all got this about 10 care homes now. It
Mm-hmm.
goes out to them and they print it off and they give it to their residents, and their residents can sit and read the jokes that like one of the nicest things that was said about that is there was a lady, she's in her 80s, and she keeps the joke. She prints off the joke section every week, and she keeps it by the side of her bed. And she says, if I wake up in the morning, I'm feeling a bit sad, I read your joke section to have a laugh. So you know what I mean? It's how do we support people in this time, whichever way we can.
Yeah.
Things change. I can't get out and see people. I can't. We used to have a disco once a month. for 95 people used to turn up, all with various different problems, dementia, Alzheimer's, you name it. But they used to get there. We used to put this disco on, £3 for a disco and a buffet, and we used to have 3 hours on a Thursday afternoon that I thoroughly enjoyed, and it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But it took me half a day to organise, but 95 people got the benefit of that.
Wow.
And you
That's
look and
amazing.
you think, it's somebody says, where did the idea come from? I says, I haven't got a clue. Sometimes worries me myself where the ideas come from. An idea pops into my head, I throw it out there, ask people about it. You know, we've set up camera clubs, fishing clubs, walking clubs, history groups, quiz afternoons. We've set them all up. And whereas a lot of people that do my type of work support people one to one,
Mm-hmm.
which is all very well and good, by putting these groups together, I can support 10, 20 people at a time.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it works. Distant. And I enjoy it. I
Mm.
enjoy it.
Yeah. And if people have spare time and would like to get involved, where can people contact you?
So just contact me. Do it through Messenger
Mm-hmm.
or on Facebook. I do actually have a community connector page
All
on
right.
Facebook, so they get my Facebook page up. They can look at that. Red Cross Community Connect live, and yeah, we can. It's quite simple. Put the application form in. You have to have a DBS, and then we'll make some introductions, and you can start helping people over the telephone. At the moment, as time moves on, when all these restrictions get lifted, there are other ways to help people.
Yeah, because the kindness is needed more than ever now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you've got to do it.
Okay. So this brings tonight's conversation to end. And thanks very much for your time, Mick,
Not
and
a problem.
all our viewers. And we really hope you enjoyed tonight's conversation. I've created a YouTube channel from all my previous episodes. And if you'd like to catch up, please go there and subscribe because that will make my day. I got about 18 subscribers at the moment. So every single subscriber counts. And thanks so much. And always remember, you inspire others just being you. And thank you all. Good night.
Good night.